Hidden Leaf Village. The explosion of energy came seconds after the 8 figures appeared in the center of the village. Each wore an Akatsuki cloak. Kisame and Itachi stepped forward first. Kisame surveyed the fleeing villagers and oncoming shinobi. "Looks like the father is going to get here first. Are you going to join me while you wait for your brother?" Kisame asked his Uchiha partner. "I'll pass." "What about you, great leader? What do you intend to do?" Kisame asked as the 6 figures, each with bright orange hair and a pair of purple rinnegan, "Cause as much damage as possible. The shinobi are your primary target. Leave the civilians for our last member," the leader of the 6 said in his regular, commanding tone. "So what exactly do you want us to call you, now that you've revealed your 6 bodies?" the Shark Man inquired, drawing Samehada. "You will continue to refer to me as Pain," the main body replied. The main path looked over to the last member of their group. Zetsu, the half-black, half-white man, was surrounded by a strange Venus flytrap shell. "Zetsu, use your clones to go straight for the civilians. While coordinating them, you shall remain alert for any new arrivals, specifically the Kage and Jinchuriki." Zetsu gave a nod before opening his shell. After weaving a few hand signs, a few hundred fully white clones of him shot out of his body. The clones formed and immediately fanned out, going after the helpless villagers. The 6 paths of pain nodded in satisfaction before jumping towards the Hokage Tower. Zetsu nodded to Kisame before burrowing into the ground to take command of his personal army. Kisame shrugged as Itachi vanished himself. He turned to the leaf shinobi who had surrounded him. Leading them was Asuma alongside Kurenai. Kisame grinned at them savagely. "So, who's first to die?" Asuma tightened his grip on his trench knives. "No one's dying today. Not on my watch." Kisame chuckled. "You're brave if you survive, and stupid if you die. Either way, I'm going to enjoy this." Kisame began to move towards the man but was frozen in place. He looked down to see shadows running up his legs, strangling him. He turned his head to see Shikamaru performing his shadow possession. Kisame grinned, channeling chakra into Samehada. The bandages that covered it were shred to pieces, the mouth at the end of the blade revealing its fangs. Shikamaru grunted as he felt his shadows being absorbed by the shark blade. "Too bad," Kisame said. "Do it, now!" Asuma's voice rang through the street they stood in, every shinobi unleashing bright orange flames towards the enemy. Asuma shouted again to stop, sensing that the flames were having no effect. Sure enough, Kisame was unharmed. "Looks like I have no problem with fire now." "Sweet," Kisame grinned. The Akatsuki member felt his stomach cave in as he was punched in the gut. He was barely able to look down and see Choji's enlarged fist before he was sent flying into the air. "Fang over fang," Kiba shouted, him and Akamaru flying up to drill into him. Kisame twisted in midair, using Samehada to bat them away with ease. Already these leaf shinobi were putting up more of a fight than expected. An explosion went off atop the Hokage Tower as he fell back to the ground. He landed atop a building, 2 shinobi swinging to attack him. Kisame flicked his wrist, their heads flying from their torsos. "Looks like that guy was wrong after all. Too bad for him." Kisame felt the blade stab into his arm. He fixed his gaze on Asuma as he weaved hand signs. Fire style, exploding flame. Fire seeped into his wound, but all he felt was a little unease. His new immunity to fire was much welcomed. After his fight with Naruto 3 years, he trained non-stop to become immune to fire and its effects. It was still painful, but he was able to shrug it off now. He punched Asuma in the face, Samehada already eating the fire that covered him. "Is that all you got?" Kisame asked, seeing the faces of the many shinobi, whose gazes held fear but remained firm. "You're stupid, all right. But I will admit, I like that look in your eyes." Kisame felt a surge of chakra appear behind him, making him turn to face it. He locked eyes with Hinata Hyuga. Her Byakugan activated, causing her chakra to spike further. Even though she had less chakra in terms of quantity and potency, he couldn't stop himself from taking a step back. He felt Samehada squirm in his hand, its desire to consume her chakra rising by the second. "Your chakra has changed a lot since we last saw each other," Kisame said with a smirk. "Samehada seems to have an appetite for it." "Sorry, but you're not having it," Hinata replied in a cold voice, slipping into her battle stance. "I won't let you hurt anyone else. This is between you and me now." Kisame laughed. "Your boyfriend is the one I would prefer to fight, but you'll suffice." Hinata scoffed, focusing her chakra. "You do realize I was one of the main players in both Hidan and Kakazu's defeat?" Kisame scoffed back. "Hidan wasn't anything special in terms of ability. Kakazu was strong, but he still doesn't compare to me." Hinata grinned. "Good. Both of those guys were too weak for me. Perhaps you'll be a better challenge." Kisame didn't bother replying with words. He allowed his ki to run wild, causing the surrounding shinobi to either freeze or fall to their knees. Kurenai, Kiba, and teammates were the only ones who were able to move. They realized this was Hinata's fight now, so they moved to get the other shinobi and civilians out of harm's way. Hinata activated her aqua armor, which made Kisame's brow raise. Water ninjutsu was his forte, but Hinata appeared to be superior in that case, in terms of shape manipulation. He wasn't afraid to admit that to himself. However, he had power to back him up, which was why he launched a violent stream of water at his opponent. Hinata began to spin as the water collided with her rotation barrier. As she spun, she focused on the water surrounding her, forcing it to merge with the rotation. Kisame realized what was happening and jumped across multiple rooftops in an attempt to escape. 8 trigrams. Water style. Rotation! Hinata shouted her jutsu name as she expanded her sphere of chakra, pushing the water along with it. 5 seconds later, a dome of water shot out from her, tearing up dozens of buildings and roads. It also struck Kisame, sending him flying into one of the village walls. Hinata stopped rotating, already preparing her next technique. Water style. Aqua wings! The air around her started to merge into tiny droplets of water. As they ran away from the battle, her fellow shinobi saw the droplets fly towards her body. Shikamaru paused his running to analyze what she was doing. The others couldn't help but stop as well. Creating water from thin air was proof of mastery over water ninjutsu, but to manipulate it in such a way was even more insane. Hinata's ability to create techniques like her aqua armor, or merge it with things like the gentle fist, was already amazing. But this is just impossible. Ino finished Shikamaru's thoughts. "She's been hiding this for years," Shino asked no one in particular. Everyone turned in fright at his sudden appearance. "You've never seen this?" Asuma asked the Aburame. Shino shook his head. They turned to Kurenai, since she used to be her sensei. She was just as dumbfounded as the rest of them. Hinata finished her preparations, a pair of blue wings sprouting from her back as she began to float off the ground. This was her most taxing technique, so she planned to finish off Kisame fast. Sakura was on the other side of the village, taking care of the wounded, so they would be unable to use their combination technique if it was needed. Naruto was likely to teleport to Jiraiya, since he'd been targeted by those 6 figures with orange hair she saw leave Kisame. Her assumption was that one of them had the Rinnegan. As she flew towards Kisame, the Akatsuki member was readying a jutsu himself. Water Prison Shark Dance Jutsu! After unleashing an ocean's worth of water, Kisame formed the liquid into a massive water prison, the size of half the hidden leaf. Though, since he was near the outskirts, most of the sphere was outside the village walls. Hinata found herself trapped inside with Kisame, who floated in the center of the dome. Samehada began to fuse with its owner, granting Kisame gills and other shark-like additions to his body. By fusing with Samehada, I become basically invincible inside this prison. I'll be able to breathe while she won't, and I'll have superior speed as well. On top of that, I act as the center of the prison, so as long as I pursue her, she'll never escape. Kisame's arrogance wavered when he saw the wings Hinata had now joined with her aqua armor. With it, her maneuverability will have increased. No matter, the shark man mused. She won't be able to hold her wings for long, I'm sure. On top of that, she won't be able to breathe either. Hinata realized this too, as Kisame swam towards her. She managed to dodge his first strike, and began swimming away from the village, intent on keeping the damage caused by the battle to a minimum. She couldn't stop herself from smiling as she swam. Under normal circumstances, she could only use her aqua wings for a few minutes. But, now that she was surrounded by water, that time would be increased noticeably. As for running out of breath, she had no worries on that part. She could hold her breath for almost 20 minutes. But due to the sudden activation of Kisame's technique, that time was halved. She planned to finish that fight before then, so she wasn't worried. Once they were a decent ways from the village, Hinata went on the attack, manipulating the water around her to form into projectiles and slam into Kisame. The man had expected the water prison to give him the advantage, but Hinata's water manipulation was far superior to his own. Thus, she was using the water around them as her own weapon. Kisame managed to create solid walls of water to block the projectiles. He made a dash for Hinata, summoning a horde of sharks which swam towards her as well. Hinata mimicked the gentle fist stance as best she could. Once the sharks were right in front of her, she did a flurry of intense palm strikes, taking out each one of them with ease. Kisame appeared above her, bringing both of his fists down. Hinata caught his fist, startling him. She pulled him close, planting a chakra-powered fist into his ribs, sending him flying. He stopped himself from going too far from the Hyuga in order to keep her inside the dome, though he was thinking of deactivating it. He charged once again, Hinata already ahead of him. She appeared above him, pure blue liquid encasing her fist. The force behind her punch sent him slamming into the ground beneath them. A drop of blood escaped his lips, but his injuries were quickly healed by Samehada's chakra. He ramped up his speed, barreling into Hinata, stabbing his fish fins into her stomach, and then pulling them out across her torso. Hinata swam a short distance away, easily repairing the damage with medical ninjutsu. Kisame created another swarm of sharks, each now 2 times bigger. The Hyuga had no trouble dealing with them, but it gave Kisame enough time to condense the water directly around her, trapping her in an even tighter water prison. Hinata thought fast and began her rotation technique. Kisame cursed as she picked up more and more speed. Within seconds, she broke his hold on the smaller prison and began to spin faster and faster. Kisame knew what she was attempting to do next, making a beeline for her, pushing against the waves she was making. 8 trigrams. Water style. Rotation! Hinata's body was a blur in the center of the blue chakra dome. Kisame's large water prison was forced away from her at intense speeds. The shark man was thrown back as well, sending him to crash into the trees below. The liquid dome was completely destroyed in a matter of seconds, large collections of water creating explosions as they hit the ground. A few strays slammed into the hidden leaf's walls several meters away, tearing it to pieces. Hinata fell to the earth with a thud. Her comrades watched from a distance at the display of power. Both Asuma and Kurenai always knew Hinata was going to surpass them. The rest of her comrades would too, eventually. But she was in a league of her own. She was easily on par with Jiraiya, and her medical prowess was rivaled only by Sakura and Tsunade herself. Hinata rose to her feet, panting. That has to be my strongest and largest rotation, she wiped her brow. Both that and my aqua wings used up half of my chakra already. She quickly replenished her energy before running towards Kisame. She found him pulling an entire tree trunk from his chest. The large gap in his chest slowly began to repair itself. Kisame sensed the girl behind him and groaned. To think I would be overpowered by a girl. If I were a Jinchuriki, I would have understood. But you, he turned to face the banished Hyuga. You're still just a child. Please, Hinata scoffed. I'll be 16 soon. And besides, the moment you became a shinobi, you basically are an adult. Kisame rolled his eyes. I suppose I can't argue with that. So, those skills of yours are quite impressive. I've never met a Hyuga as versatile as you. Then again, that's probably the reason you got banished in the first place. Your use of water is incredible. Both your armor and wings are truly the epitome of water ninjutsu. How perceptive, Hinata praised mockingly. Now, are you going to surrender? Kisame let out a soft laugh. No, I don't think I will. I intend to finish this, one way or another. Any last requests before we begin? Hinata asked, 2 swords appearing from her storage bracelets. What do you ask? Kisame replied carefully, separating himself from Samehada and taking its handle. There's something about you, Hinata responded simply. It's like you have no fear of dying. Most shinobi don't fear death. If they do, it's because they have a purpose in their life. But not you? Kisame stared at the girl, her Byakugan trained directly on him. I never had any purpose. I only joined the Akatsuki because I believed I found one. Awakening the Ten Tails? Kisame shrugged. And what comes after, yes. Though I suppose I did find one friend in that group of misfits. Too bad he's going to die soon. After that, I'll just follow the orders of the Akatsuki. You care about Itachi? Hinata asked with surprise. I guess you could say that, in a way. Hinata's swords lit up in blue chakra. In that case, I'll let you live long enough to die at his side, once Sasuke's finished with him. Kisame raised an eyebrow. Why would you do such a thing for your enemy? Itachi is not an enemy, at least in my eyes. Just a misunderstood hero. And if you call him a friend, I think he might see you as one too. Just because we're enemies doesn't mean I'm heartless. I'll let you die at Itachi's side if I can. But if not, I'll end you here and now. Kisame grinned, showing his razor-sharp teeth. Alright then, I accept. But that doesn't mean I'm going to go easy on you. Hinata smirked wildly. I wouldn't dream of it. The 2 shinobi disappeared in a burst of speed. Any onlooker would only see the sparks created by their clashing blades. Kisame's strength was bothersome, but Hinata was able to outmaneuver him with her small frame and swords. Hinata deactivated the last of her gravity seals, letting her land to hit on Kisame's arm. Kisame jumped back and allowed Samehada to heal his arm. Hinata produced 2 water dragons. Kisame easily cut through them, absorbing their chakra. He unleashed it in a wave of water, which Hinata easily dodged. Kisame appeared behind her, swinging Samehada in a wide arc. Hinata twisted her arm to block the shark blade with her own. She pushed him back, channeling chakra into her fist and punching him in the gut. He was thrown through several trees. Samehada's skills turned to large spikes, blocking Hinata's attack, shattering her swords. 8 trigrams water style. 128 palms. Kisame didn't have time to block with Samehada, feeling his body light up in pain. He felt his chakra pathways close, but Samehada instantly began opening them. He managed to let out a surge of chakra, pushing Hinata away. She charged back in, punching him in the face. He flew with the punch, bringing Samehada down on her shoulder. Hinata's arm instantly became coated with water, grabbing the scaly blade long enough to throw him into the air. Earth style, falling earth spears. Kisame smashed the spikes with Samehada, sending a shark bomb down at Hinata. She used a water bomb of her own. She produced a set of kunai paired with explosive tags. The moment before Kisame landed, she threw them at his feet. His legs were nothing more than stubs connected to his waist. Hinata used a wind-powered kunai to slash his arm cleanly off. Kisame managed to block his other arm with his blade, its chakra already beginning to repair his wounds. Sorry, but I'm not gonna let that happen, Hinata whispered, flashing behind her opponent. Hinata grabbed Kisame's wrist, using enough of her strength to break it, making him drop Samehada. He growled in annoyance as he felt his arm getting ripped off his torso from Hinata's brute strength. Hinata threw his limbless body against a tree, Samehada landing a few feet away. Hinata ran towards the blade as it began to fly back to its owner. She used a mud wall to stop its advance and grabbed its handle. Spikes sprouted from the handle, impaling her hand. She grunted in pain, but managed to place Samehada inside a storage seal. Once it was sealed, she ran back over to Kisame, who was bleeding profusely. She knelt and began treatment. Just so we're clear, I'm not giving you your limbs back, just to make sure you don't try anything. Kisame chuckled. Are you saying you can actually restore limbs? Hinata responded with a snort, making Kisame fall silent. He watched her seal his wounds, impressed by her skill, mastery over both water and medical ninjutsu. She was a cut above the rest, as expected of the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki's girlfriend. Now, let's get over to Itachi, Hinata muttered. After that, I'll kill you properly. How nice, Kisame replied. I won't bother thanking you, since I'd much rather have my arms and legs. Hinata rolled her eyes, sealing away Kisame's body and making her way back to the village. Her first priority was to help with those Zetsu clones. The information on them was limited to their basic functions, to act as an army for the Akatsuki. They were easily tuning level, so they shouldn't prove too much difficulty, even in her current state. The sound of thunder filled her ears. Her Byakugan shot up, seeing the massive blue energy that appeared near the village walls. Her eyes widened, making her increase her speed. She knew it was Sasuke, since Naruto had no such ability. I wonder how he's faring against Itachi, Hinata thought to herself. Itachi, 30 minutes earlier. Itachi found himself in the Uchiha compound, wandering the streets that were covered in blood the last time he walked through them. Despite the terrible memories, it felt nice to walk through them one last time. His thoughts were interrupted by the presence behind him. He heard the sound of shuriken whizzing towards him. He dodged each one with ease. As he turned, his eyes morphed into the Sharingan. His eyes widened when he saw Sasuke's lightning-coated hand directly in front of him. Itachi barely managed to avoid his Chidori, substituting with a roof tile. Sasuke's attack created a large crater where Itachi used to stand. He turned to look at his elder brother, his eyes filled with anger. Itachi saw that it was controlled anger, not the unbridled rage from 2 years ago. You better go all out, Itachi, Sasuke stated in a cold tone. Itachi blinked at his brother. Sasuke didn't flinch, even when he felt the genjutsu cast on him. Don't bother, Itachi. My eyes are skilled enough to tell when you've used a genjutsu. Itachi sighed in acceptance. He couldn't tell if he was bluffing or telling the truth. Either way, genjutsu would consume time. Time that neither of them wanted to waste. Itachi slowly weaved a set of hand signs. Fire style. Twin Dragon Fire Jutsu. The two dragons shot towards Sasuke, who remained still until they were mere inches from his face. In the instant before they struck, his body lit up in yellow flames, vanishing from view. Itachi whipped around to see his sword inches from his face. He ducked under the blade, his fist aimed at Sasuke's stomach. Sasuke vanished again, slashing Itachi's arm. He jumped, scanning the area with his Sharingan. The Sharingan can track linear movement with ease. Even a novice could track the likes of a low-ranking Jonin. But it seems my non-linear speed is faster than you can follow. Itachi turned at the last second, catching the sword in his hand. Sasuke's eyes widened as his brother shattered the blade. You underestimate me, Itachi replied smoothly. Sasuke cursed under his breath, moving in for a bout of taijutsu. Itachi had no difficulty blocking and evading his attacks, even after he started using the fighting styles Anko had taught him during the last 2 years. Looks like I have to use this, Sasuke growled. activating the first stage of the curse mark. Black flames shot across Sasuke's body, making Itachi freeze. Those markings. They belong to Orochimaru, don't they? Itachi asked in disappointment. I've spent too long learning to control this power to let it go to waste. Worry not, the snake can't control me unless I use the second stage. And even then, he must be close by. It is my own power now, not his. Itachi blinked in response. He could remove it, but Sasuke seemed adamant about keeping it for his own. He trusted his brother's decision, readopting his battle stance. Sasuke opened his eyes, revealing his Sharingan to be surrounded by black. Sasuke dashed straight at Itachi, fist reared back. Itachi blocked with his arm, a kunai appearing in his other. He thrust it into Sasuke's chest, leaving an opening to let himself get kneed in the face. The force threw him off the roof, making him crash into a house wall. Sasuke plucked the kunai from his chest, the wound healing in an instant. He tossed the blade to the side, flashing through hand signs. Chidori Bolt! Itachi pulled himself from the rubble, dodging the blast of energy that tore up the house he'd been thrown in. He managed to block another punch and kick, planting his foot in Sasuke's chin. He was thrown into the air, giving him time to throw a Fuma Shuriken enhanced with lightning. The blades flew fast enough to force Itachi to substitute again. He didn't know if his illness was affecting his eyes, or if Sasuke was truly faster than him. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Lightning style, Chidori Senbon. Sasuke countered Itachi's flaming bullets with precisely aimed lightning needles. He used the smoke screen to appear behind his brother, a silver Chidori sparkling in his hand. Itachi ducked and did a spinning kick into his gut. Upon impact, Sasuke's body exploded in fire, forcing Itachi to abandon his Akatsuki cloak. The sun's wrath! Itachi covered his eyes due to the intense light the mini-sun gave off. It quickly grew until it floated above 2 full houses. Sasuke's arm was searing with pain, but he forced it away. He brought the large, fiery orb down on Itachi, half expecting Itachi to evade. The other half of him thought that his older brother would take the attack head-on. The latter thought turned out to be correct, as Sasuke heard a single word escape his brother's lips as the flames engulfed his view. Amaterasu. Black flames burst into existence, instantly consuming the sun's wrath. Sasuke wrenched his hand away from the mini-star, jumping as far away as possible. Itachi was finally revealing his Mangekyo Sharingan's second ability. Sasuke cursed. If he even came close to those flames, he'd be dead instantly. He saw Itachi stumble, but stayed upright. He knew his brother couldn't use his eyes much longer, due to his strange illness. If he could draw out another Amaterasu, Itachi would leave an opening. Itachi forced back his pain, dashing at his brother, kunai in hand. Sasuke drew his sword, lightning coursing through it. He and Itachi traded blows, neither able to land a clean hit. Itachi jumped over his brother, releasing Shuriken. Sasuke snatched each one out of midair, throwing them back, now laced with fire. Itachi avoided each projectile. He ran through hand signs, unleashing a large fireball. Sasuke split it in half with his sword, sending its lightning out in a thunderbolt jutsu. Itachi merely moved his head to avoid the attack, bringing his kunai up to block Sasuke's slash. Go ahead, use it, Sasuke whispered to his brother. Why? Itachi asked blankly. Because I know you won't attack me with it directly unless I tell you. Itachi blinked at his brother. Fine. Itachi broke away, forcing chakra into his Mangekyo. The black flames sprouted along Sasuke's sword, making him drop it. He saw Itachi's guard drop the second the sword hit the ground. In that instant, Sasuke's body lit up with silver lightning. Itachi barely saw his younger brother use the lightning cloak before he vanished from view. He sent Sasuke behind him and pushed himself to spin around, stopping Sasuke's punch with his palm. He landed a hit on Sasuke's face, making him explode. Itachi landed on another building, Sasuke appearing out of the smoke, Chidori in hand. Itachi was impressed by the lightning cloak his brother had created. It wasn't as refined as the Raikage's, but it easily made Sasuke faster than him. Without his Sharingan, he wouldn't be able to see him at all. Itachi used Amaterasu again to block Sasuke's advance. Sasuke flipped into the air, activating the second stage of the curse mark. Webbed wings sprouted from his back, his skin darkening, and his hair turning dark blue. He easily flew over the black fire, still aimed at his brother. Itachi was barely able to stop the Chidori from piercing his chest, letting his arm take the hit instead. His right arm was out of commission, and Sasuke wasn't going to let Itachi breathe. His taijutsu was faster than Itachi was able to keep up with, finally giving him a proper advantage. Sasuke landed multiple hits, Itachi barely able to block, let alone dodge. Fire style, flame bombs. Sasuke ducked and jumped over the projectiles, channeling wind chakra into his sword. He slashed Itachi's legs, making him buckle, but remain upright. Itachi revealed an explosive kunai, throwing it at his brother. Sasuke flew upward, avoiding the blast. Itachi looked up at him as he floated overhead. Sasuke looked up into the sky, dark clouds forming above them, casting a shadow over the entire village. Everything was ready. Sasuke looked down at his older brother, flashing through a few hand signs. Itachi's eyes widened at the thunder that came soon after. Streaks of lightning began to form in the clouds. Sasuke raised his hand, chakra dispersing into the clouds, calling forth its power. A giant dragon formed from the electricity, baring its fangs at Itachi. Across the entire village, people raised their heads to witness the display of lightning-style mastery. I made this specifically for you, Itachi. Prepare yourself to face Kirin, Sasuke whispered with a mix of anger and sadness. Itachi stared at the massive lightning, completely awestruck. A smile crept onto his lips as he focused his chakra. Sasuke's Sharingan narrowed at the red aura that surrounded his brother. So, he knows how to use the Susanoo as well, Sasuke growled. It's only the upper body, so Kirin still has a chance of piercing it. A red ribcage formed first, followed by 4 arms and a skull. Flesh-like tendrils formed around the skeleton, a strange style of armor forming soon after. Itachi barely managed to finish forming the Susanoo as Sasuke's hand lit up with silver lightning, turning Kirin silver as well. Goodbye, brother, the two last Uchiha whispered to each other as Sasuke lowered his arm. Kirin was the same speed as real lightning, meaning that no one saw it strike the ground. The shockwave, however, blew nearby buildings to rubble. Even on the other side of the village, houses shook from the blast. Dust filled the Uchiha compound, blocking all outsiders' view of the area. Hinata was the only one who cared to look further, since she had a promise to keep. She landed on the compound wall, bringing Kisame's limbless body out of the scroll. I'll leave you here. If you use any chakra at all, the seal will kill you within 60 seconds. End yourself if you wish, or don't. Someone will come back for your body either way. Hinata placed the seal on the back of Kisame's neck. Kisame nodded in gratitude before the Hyuga dashed away. Kisame turned his gaze to the red hue he could barely make out inside the cloud of dust. Sasuke could see it as well. In the center, Itachi laid on the ground, bleeding profusely. His Susanoo had absorbed a good chunk of the blast, but it wasn't enough to protect him fully. Sasuke flew back down to ground level, landing a short distance from his brother, who was already rising to his feet. His scratched shinobi headband fell from his forehead, landing with a silent clang. Sasuke's Sharingan spun wildly as he advanced. another Chidori forming in his hand. Itachi's Mangekyo landed on Sasuke, blood trickling down from them. He deactivated his damaged Susanoo, standing as upright as he could. It's finally time, I see. He breathed out as Sasuke came to stand in front of him. You understand what has to happen now. First, I want you to tell me about the Rinnegan and how your leader got them, Sasuke commanded. I don't know. All I know is that there is someone in the shadows, manipulating Pain. Pain? The name of the leader. He uses the Rinnegan to control a total of 6 bodies for combat, each body possessing a different Rinnegan ability. That's all I know. Sasuke's Sharingan narrowed. We both know an Uchiha was the one to release the Nine Tails from Naruto's mother. Do you know of anyone who might have a grudge against the village? Itachi let a smile adorn his face. I think Naruto and his fox companion have already figured that out. Now, let's be done with this, brother. You must kill me. Without that, you won't awaken your Mangekyo, and you won't have the power necessary to fight the coming battles. Sasuke hesitated to raise his hand, seeing the pain in his brother's eyes, as blood continued to stream down his cheeks. He closed his eyes, forcing his hand to move. He knew he was going to kill Itachi. He knew there was no other way to end this. The Mangekyo was powerful, but did he really want it? He knew the curse of the Mangekyo. Did he want it to blind him with hatred, just like it had done to so many others? No, his brother had avoided that path. He could too. He had his friends. He had Sakura. I will surpass the curse of the Sharingan. And I will surpass you, Itachi, Sasuke forced out, his Chidori glowing with intensity. Foolish little brother, Itachi muttered back, raising his arm to tap Sasuke's forehead, just like how he used to years ago. You have already surpassed me. Tears formed as Sasuke's fists tightened, causing blood to seep between his fingers. The lightning turned the blood to steam as he reared his fist back. Goodbye, Itachi. Itachi's eyes closed, waiting for the lightning to pierce his flesh. But his senses were still on high alert, making his eyes snap open. A figure appeared behind Sasuke, but his younger brother was too tunnel-visioned to see him. Itachi forced his body into action, catching Sasuke's Chidori and throwing him out of harm's way. The figure's hood fell, revealing an orange mask with one eye hole. It's you, I should have known. Itachi's eyes spun, black flames appearing along the figure's body. Sasuke adjusted his fall, turning to see the masked man get consumed with the flames of Amaterasu. Impressive. You're still able to fight in your condition, Itachi Uchiha. The two brothers turned to see the man behind them, his cloak merely singed by the black fire. Itachi used Amaterasu again, but the figure disappeared in a strange bend of space, almost like a swirling motion. I should have known it was you, Madara, Itachi cursed. I know you know that's not who I am. At least, not fully, the man replied, resting his hand on Itachi's shoulder. Sasuke moved to intercept the man, but Itachi activated his Susanoo, forcing both him and the masked man away. Sasuke, you must flee. He assisted me during the massacre. He's even stronger than me. Itachi brought his hand to his face, reaching into his skull, much to the surprise of his brother and the masked man. You must flee, before he captures you too. Itachi removed his right eye with a grunt, sealing it in a glass jar and then a stasis scroll before tossing it to Sasuke. The instant he tossed it, he deactivated his Susanoo, allowing the masked man to appear directly in front of him. Sorry, but this might hurt a bit. The man reached for Itachi's left eye. Sasuke flew at him, intending to barrel into him. But as he closed in, his fingers grasped for the man's cloak, only to see them phase through it. His eyes widened, the rest of his body traveling through the man like he didn't exist. Sasuke turned and aimed a kick at the enemy's face. This time the man grabbed his leg, throwing him to the side. Sasuke flipped and threw a kunai, which also phased through the man. "Who are you? What do you want with Itachi?" The man didn't stop his hand from moving towards Itachi, who was too tired to move now due to the massive amount of blood loss. "To take his eyes. But since you're in possession of one of them, I suppose I can part with it. But I will be taking the left one, just in case." A Chidori bolt shot through his chest again, having no effect. At this point, the young Uchiha was growing annoying. He turned to face Sasuke as he flew towards the masked man. Fire style, the sun's wrath! Needless to say, the attack was ineffective. The masked man simply walked through the blaze, kunai in hand. Sasuke managed to dodge a series of attacks, but since he couldn't fight back, he was losing. "I'll admit, you're a worthy fighter. Without these eyes of mine, I wouldn't stand much of a chance against you in this current body." Sasuke cursed when he realized what the man meant. Behind his mask's eye hole, he could see a faint red aura. He knew instantly this was an Uchiha. "You're the one who released Kurama and killed Naruto's mother. Madara, was it?" "Kurama? Oh, you mean the Nine-Tails. Yes, I guess I did do that. So yes, I am Madara, in a sense." Sasuke jumped back, activating his lightning cloak. "So, you're Madara. Good to know. So, how does your Mangekyo Sharingan work? I assume it has to do with that intangibility power of yours." "Perceptive, aren't you?" Madara replied. The masked Madara ran through a set of hand signs. "Fire style, multi-dragon fire jutsu." A dozen flaming dragons shot towards Sasuke, who avoided each one with ease. As he ducked under the last one, Madara appeared beside him in a reality-bending swirl. "He's faster." Sasuke wasn't able to dodge his kunai swipe. The blade dug into his left eye, deep. He couldn't open it, and even if he could, the blood would fill his vision. He didn't know how damaged it was, but was expecting the worst. He flashed back to Itachi's side, who had fallen to the ground. "Sasuke, take my eye, kill me, and burn my corpse. That way, he won't get my eyes, nor will he be able to summon me with the reanimation jutsu." Sasuke cursed. He knew he had to do it, but he hesitated. Even after resolving himself to go through with Itachi's death, he continued to hesitate. "Sorry, but I'm not going to let that happen," the masked man interrupted, swirling into existence behind Sasuke. "Your brother's body may prove useful, just like his eyes." Sasuke whipped around, sword in hand. It traveled straight through the man's neck. He caught the blade once it exited, snapping it in half with a simple display of strength. He reached for Sasuke's collar, managing to grab hold before Sasuke could move away. He felt himself being drawn in by the strange swirling the masked man kept appearing from. He must be able to pull both himself and others inside whatever that Mangekyo ability is. With it, he can teleport between locations. It's not as fast as Naruto's flying Raijin, but it's still annoying. But why can't I hit him? Is that his second ability? Sasuke activated his lightning cloak, attempting to overcome the ability. As he did, the lightning jumped to the masked man, shocking him and forcing him to let go of Sasuke. Sasuke put distance between them, watching as his opponent shook off the lightning. Looks like he can't be intangible and use his teleport ability at the same time. That must also mean he can't be intangible if he wants to grab me. Good, that gives me room to work. Amaterasu. Black fire surrounded the masked man. He phased out of the first wave, but more and more black flames popped into existence every time he thought he'd avoided them. Sasuke was the first to see Itachi, using what little strength he had to pepper the masked man with Amaterasu. Sasuke realized he had another reason for doing this. To make himself go blind, making his eye useless to the masked man. Sasuke cursed. Even if he told his brother to stop, he wouldn't listen. He'd gone through too much to end up being a factor in either Sasuke's or the village's defeat. Off in the distance, Kisame watched his Akatsuki partner with a mixture of emotions. Even on the brink of death, you're still fighting for what you believe in. The shark man closed his eyes. You're the complete opposite of what I believed a shinobi to be. I suppose that might explain why we got along. Kisame wished he could flex his arms, or his legs. He wished he could do something, anything. Itachi was the closest he had to a friend, and he wasn't about to let that masked man use his corpse. He used to think that the masked man's plan for the world was his way of obtaining a purpose. Who am I kidding? I was used, and I let it happen. That Madara wannabe played me. Well, no longer. Kisame's chakra spiked higher than it had ever been before. I've got 60 seconds, but I'll be damned if I don't use those 60 seconds to the fullest. Water droplets formed from the air around him, every ounce of energy pouring out of his body. Despite not having arms, he forced the images of hand signs into his mind. A sphere of water formed around Kisame, lifting him off the ground. The sphere formed into a shark which dashed towards the battle, Kisame floating inside. Sasuke was the first to see the incoming Kisame. The masked man did as well, but remained still. Sasuke jumped onto a nearby building, seconds before the liquid shark exploded. You missed, Kisame. Your lack of limbs must be putting off your aim, the masked man stated, seeing the state the shark man was in inside the water sphere. I wasn't aiming for the kid. I was aiming for you. The sphere shot a series of projectiles at the masked man. He could see his visible Sharingan widen as the projectiles passed right through him, exploding a few feet away. What the hell are you doing? The masked man asked, dangerously, his ki leaking out of him in waves. I'm doing this to prove that I exist. If I can at least injure you, my life will truly have meaning. The masked man jumped back several meters as more liquid bullets shot at him. What are you doing, Kisame? Itachi asked from his position on the ground, barely able to breathe. Kisame looked at his partner with a smirk. Consider this payment. I'm going to use my last 30 seconds to help you. We're friends after all. At least I hope we are. Itachi would have smiled if he had the strength. All he could do was say, thank you. Kisame focused back on the masked man as Sasuke jumped beside him. Thanks for this, the young Uchiha whispered. I'm not doing this for you, brat. But you're welcome anyways. Kisame commanded his water sphere to dash at the masked man, Sasuke following close behind. Kisame sent multiple sharks at him, but they each phased through him. His Mangekyo was mysterious, even to him, but he knew there had to be an opening. In his current state, all he could do was try to make that opening to let Sasuke deal damage. Sasuke alternated attacks with Kisame's sharks, looking for the exact moment the masked man would become tangible again. Kisame only had 15 seconds left. Kisame, use that jutsu! Kisame heard Itachi's words. He knew instantly what he meant. Itachi, if you truly don't want your body to fall into his hands, then use Amaterasu on yourself. Itachi nodded in understanding, startling Sasuke. The younger brother didn't have time to respond as Kisame activated his final ninjutsu. Water style. 1,000 hungry sharks! All of Kisame's chakra burst from his body, transforming into the shape of 1,000 sharks, each one focused solely on the masked man. Damn you, Kisame, he cursed as the sharks barrel into him, passing right through him once again. The wave of sharks filled the Uchiha compound. Kisame's water sphere burst, making him fall to the ground with a thud. He had 5 seconds left. I hope you're happy now, Itachi. I finally did something meaningful for once. Sasuke jumped to his side. Thanks again. Just get to your brother, little boy. Let me rest in peace. Sasuke nodded, running to his brother. Kisame stared into the sky, 2 seconds remaining in this world. Damn, I don't have any cool last words to say. How lame, Kisame chuckled. It was the last sound he ever made. Sasuke skidded to a halt beside Itachi, who had now propped himself up against the wall. He only had enough energy for one more Amaterasu. Sasuke, it's time for me to go, before that man escapes Kisame's technique. Sasuke was frantically looking for something to say, but his mind turned up empty. It's okay, Sasuke. I know what you want to say. I love you too. Always. Sasuke's eyes began to fill with tears, even as a searing pain filled his head. In that instant, Sasuke's only functioning eye opened, revealing their new pattern. His Mangekyo Sharingan. Go on, Sasuke. Protect this village. Revive the Uchiha clan. Live a happy life with that pink-haired girl. Sakura, I believe her name was. Sasuke clasped Itachi's hand. Yes. Itachi grunted in pain. I'll enjoy meeting her and your children when it comes time for you to join me and our people. I'll tell mother and father you said hello. Sasuke's eyes shut tightly. It took all his willpower to let go of Itachi. He stepped back, wiping the tears and blood from his eyes. Itachi managed to form one last smile and utter one final word. Goodbye. Itachi's eyes spun. Amaterasu activated, and the black flames appeared around him. The flames crawled up his body, yet no cry escaped his lips as his eyes turned blank. Sasuke couldn't move, even when he felt an incoming presence. The masked man stopped a few feet away from him. You get to live for now, Uchiha. Perhaps next time you will prove a bigger challenge. I have things to do. With that, the man swirled away with his Mangekyo. Sasuke only vaguely heard his words, as he continued to stare at the dying black flames. He felt for the scroll that held the only part of Itachi he had left, his right eye. His own left eye was useless, and eventually he could end up blind if he used his own right, meaning he had to get his brother's eye transplanted soon. As for his left, he only had one option, provided Naruto stole one of the Akatsuki leader's Rinnegan. Did you know this was going to happen, Naruto? Did you know I was going to lose an eye? Sasuke scoffed. He's not that insightful. But I've got no other choice if I want to have 2 eyes. Perhaps taking one of the Rinnegan is for the best. Sasuke looked into the sky. You wanted me to protect this village. I promise. I will protect this place with my life, just as you did. Hokage Tower, 30 minutes earlier. Jiraiya jumped away just in time to avoid an explosion. He had to jump again to avoid a pair of shinobi sandals crushing him. He instantly found himself surrounded by 6 figures, each with bright orange hair. He examined each of them. They all had the same scratched headband with the hidden rain symbol. Strange black piercings dotted their faces. Each of their eyes were the fabled Rinnegan, its rippling pattern staring directly at Jiraiya. Jiraiya's eyes landed on the one who appeared to be the leader, and he couldn't stop himself from gasping. Yahiko. It's really you, isn't it? Yes, Jiraiya-sensei. Let me guess. You assumed we were dead. Jiraiya grunted. Your last known sighting was before you approached Hanzo of the Salamander. There was no reason for me to believe the information was false. Me and my fellow Sannin weren't able to defeat him. Even with Konan and Nagato, I doubt you could have beaten him. You found out the Akatsuki had the Rinnegan. After that, surely it must have made you believe that we were still alive, Yahiko questioned. I had my suspicions, but I deemed it unlikely. But now, otherwise. What I want to know is why you had the Rinnegan, and not Nagato, Jiraiya replied, readying himself for combat. There is so much you don't understand, Jiraiya-sensei, Yahiko answered darkly, raising his hand. Universal pull. Jiraiya's body jerked forward, flying towards Yahiko's outstretched arm. He moved fast, transforming his white hair into razor-sharp blades. Yahiko had to move out of the way to avoid grabbing him. Jiraiya jumped onto the railing, planning his next move. The 6 paths took up their positions as the Sannin asked another question. Why are you even here? None of the Jinchuriki are. It would have made more sense to attack the Kage summit. The Kage are powerful opponents, as are the Jinchuriki. It's a much better plan to destroy that which the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki holds dear. After I kill you, I'll kill his female companion. After he learns of this, he'll surrender to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Jiraiya's eyes softened. When did you become so heartless, Yahiko? Yahiko died a long time ago. There is only pain. One of the 6 paths raised their arms, which transformed into missile launchers. Jiraiya thought fast and produced a gust of wind that knocked the missile off course. Summoning Jutsu! Gamabunta appeared beneath Jiraiya, lifting the Sannin away from the 6 paths. Another of the paths performed the summoning jutsu. A large, multi-headed dog appeared out of the smoke and barreled into Gamabunta. The Toad Boss drew his Tonto, slicing the dog in half with ease. Jiraiya turned to look at the dog, only to see another head materialize and the beast to rise. Gamabunta, can I trust you to deal with any summoning he pulls out? Don't worry about me, old friends. I'll handle this monstrosity. I haven't fought in a while. It'll be nice to stretch my legs. With that, Jiraiya dismounted, and the toad jumped out of the village walls, the dog following him. Jiraiya had to dodge a pair of hands from the 6 paths. He landed in the middle of their group, launching a barrage of shuriken. Almighty push. Yahiko raised his arm, and the shuriken were thrown back at Jiraiya. The Sannin dodged, placing him right in front of one of the paths. The man grabbed his arm, and he instantly felt his chakra begin to be drained out of him. Gravity manipulation, summoning, technological weaponry, and chakra absorption? Each of the body seems to use one ability. Most likely each ability comes from the Rinnegan. I didn't know Nagato knew how to use these abilities. I thought he could only copy ninjutsu from any element. Did Yahiko learn how to use them? Jiraiya substituted with the closest path, the one who used the summoning jutsu. He jumped to the other side of the Hokage Tower, readying his next technique. A pair of Rasengans formed in his hands. He dashed at the one with technological weaponry, planning to take him out first. That way, they no longer have long-range capabilities. He only made it halfway when Yahiko activated his universal pull. Jiraiya twisted as he was drawn towards him, infusing his Rasengans with a bit of fire chakra. Yahiko had to dodge as Jiraiya slammed the 2 chakra orbs together, creating an explosion. Jiraiya took advantage of the smokescreen, summoning himself and the technology user into one of the Toad's pocket dimensions. The man turned in every direction, trying to determine its location. Before he could figure it out, a Rasengan traveled right through his torso. The body fell to the ground, dead. Jiraiya had a few more minutes before his pocket dimension's time synced with the real world. In that time, he extracted the Rinnegan eyes, handing them over to another Toad, which returned to Mount Myoboku. They would be safe there. After finishing, he returned to the real world. You removed my eyes, Yahiko stated, when Jiraiya appeared out of the smoke. How did you know? Jiraiya asked, looking for some answers. I know everything that happens to one of my 6 paths. He must be able to sense the Rinnegan somehow, Jiraiya thought, weaving hand signs. Or perhaps even see them. Water style, water wave. Yahiko pushed the liquid away with his almighty push. sending droplets to fly in every direction. Jiraiya weaved another set of hand signs, the droplets reforming into a series of liquid bullets. Yahiko's eyes widened before the path with chakra absorption jumped in front of the attack, consuming it. Yahiko didn't use Almighty Push again, and instead relied on that path's chakra absorption ability. Maybe he has to wait after using his gravity manipulation. If so, I need to find out how long it is. Jiraiya dashed forward at top speed, kunai in hand. He threw 4 at Yahiko, who simply dodged them all. As they flew past him, Jiraiya popped out of existence. Yahiko was unfazed as his summoning path watched the kunai transform into the Sannin. Each of them threw an explosive tag. Almighty Push. Blades came nowhere near him as he repelled them back. Jiraiya watched from his hiding spot. Yahiko didn't turn to see the kunai, yet he knew they were coming. The summoning path was watching them instead. Can they communicate somehow? Perhaps that's what those black piercings are for. Or maybe the Renegon has something to do with it. Universal Pull. Luckily, Jiraiya's hiding spot was out of his range. Yahiko looked around, unable to sense Jiraiya. If he will not come out, then I have no choice but to go after the civilians instead. Jiraiya gritted his teeth. He couldn't let that happen. He deactivated his transparency jutsu, planting his hands on the ground. Seals shot out from him, crawling along the Hokage Tower's roof, circling the 5 remaining paths of pain. Ninja Art. Vacuum Barrier. A white barrier materialized around the paths of pain, and they immediately began to start suffocating. The path with chakra absorption tried to walk towards the barrier and absorb it. A new set of seals appeared at his feet, freezing him in place. Yahiko wasted no time and forced the barrier back with Almighty Push. The barrier buckled before shattering, the seals on the ground being torn up as well, but the damage had already been done. All of the paths were on the ground except for Yahiko, who turned to one of the 2 paths who hadn't revealed their powers. The path put his hands together. King of Hell. A strange monster sprouted from the ground, surrounded by purple flames. Its mouth opened, tongue-like tendrils shooting out to grab each of the 5 paths. Jiraiya watched in shock. Several seconds later, the 5 paths walked out of the King of Hell. All signs of injury or fatigue gone. That path has to be taken out first. Otherwise, they'll just heal themselves since I can't separate them like I did with the technology user. At least I know what it can do. All that leaves is one more path that I don't know the ability of. Jiraiya unleashed a wave of elemental ninjutsu, one type after another. They were all absorbed with ease by the path which Yahiko kept in front of the King of Hell user. Chakra-based attacks will only waste my energy. Seals seem to work, but it looks like Yahiko can push them away with his gravity powers. The Sannin placed his hand on the ground, seals crawling along it. Yahiko used another almighty push, the seals tearing apart. Jiraiya cursed. The only option he could think of was Sage Mode, but he needed time to activate it. Time he didn't have. Yahiko and the remaining paths dashed towards him, aiming for a fatal blow. "Looks like you're having trouble, Lord Jiraiya." Jiraiya smirked at the sound of that voice, as well as the chirping noise that came briefly after. Yahiko's Renegon widened, sensing the presence of a new enemy directly behind his summoning path. The bright blue Chidori traveled directly through their chest, the summoning path going limp. The gravity-defying, silver-haired Jonin swiftly withdrew his hand, throwing the body off to the side of the tower. "About time you showed up, Kakashi the copy ninja," Yahiko said, eyes still trained on his old teacher. "I've been expecting you to make an appearance. You simply can't allow your friends to die." Kakashi lifted his headband, revealing his Sharingan. "You've done your homework." "Hardly. I just happen to know someone who knows you very well." Kakashi raised an eyebrow, forcing the statement away. He had enemies to face. "I trust you've seen enough to know who to take out, Kakashi. Jiraiya grunted, rising to his feet. Certainly, Kakashi said, flashing through hand signs. Earth style, mud wall. The mud walls surrounded the entire Hokage tower. Jiraiya placed more seals on the rising walls, setting up potential attacks for later. Yahiko seemed uninterested. He and his paths returned to their formation. Kakashi got straight to work, producing shadow clones. Each of them charged at the enemy. Jiraiya watched the 4th Hokage student with intrigue as he continued to set up seals. He'd never witnessed Kakashi's prowess up close. This was going to be interesting. Lightning cable. 2 clones formed a line of electricity between them, the King of Hell user their target. 2 more clones ran towards the path, which had yet to reveal its ability. The real Kakashi aimed for the chakra absorption user, kunai in hand. The chakra absorption user jumped in front of the King of Hell user, sucking away the lightning cable, as well as the clones in a matter of seconds. The other 2 clones jumped at the remaining path, which was ready to defend themselves. Yahiko was about to activate Universal Pull, but paused when the 2 clones exploded in smoke. Kakashi had a feeling the Rinnegan would be unable to see through the smoke screen, since the Sharingan was unable to as well. But Kakashi also had his sense of smell that rivaled that of an Inuzuka. He charged directly at Yahiko, even as he shouted, "Almighty push!" Kakashi signaled to Jiraiya with a whistle. Jiraiya sensed the seal he had placed earlier beneath Kakashi's feet, and he realized what Kakashi wanted. He activated the seal, freezing Kakashi's feet in place, even as the force of Yahiko's technique tried to send him flying. The technique removed the smoke, Kakashi wasting no time to attack Yahiko. The Akatsuki leader grunted in annoyance. He had been baited into using his ability, allowing Kakashi to get up close and personal. "Hell's Fire Dash!" Kakashi shouted, his body lighting up in flames, thanks to Naruto's first original jutsu. Yahiko barely managed to avoid his attack. As Kakashi continued his attack, Jiraiya was silently counting the seconds. Exactly 5 seconds after Yahiko had last used Almighty Push, he activated it again, throwing Kakashi against the wall. He managed to substitute with his last clone that had still been fighting the path with the unknown ability. Jiraiya and Kakashi both smirked as they saw the look of anger on all the Paths of Pain's faces. Only 4 paths remained. This is growing tiresome already. Let's end this and wait for the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki's reaction, Yahiko said as the other paths moved closer to him. Universal pull. Both Jiraiya and Kakashi felt themselves jerk forward at high speeds. Neither of them had time to stop themselves from being pulled in, even as the massive mud walls began to crack from the intense gravity. Kakashi threw a Chidori bolt in an attempt to stop Yahiko. It was merely absorbed. The unknown path grabbed Jiraiya by the throat, while Yahiko did the same to Kakashi. Now, both of you shall know pain. I shall start with you, Jiraiya-sensei. The unknown path removed his hand from Jiraiya. A strange humanoid aura began to follow his hand as he raised it above Jiraiya. By removing your soul, I will know everything that you know. That will also include all information on the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, as well as his weaknesses. Jiraiya could feel his soul being slowly pulled out of his body. Kakashi sent lightning coursing through his body, but the chakra absorption path sucked it away before it could do any damage to Yahiko. Do not worry, Jiraiya-sensei. Your beloved student will be joining you soon enough. Jiraiya bit back the pain. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to help you, Nagato and Konan. Yahiko remained unfazed, even as his path was prepared to yank the soul out of him. Rasen Shuriken! The attack appeared out of nowhere, taking off the head of the path that held Jiraiya. Yahiko's Rinnegan widened as the wind-powered Rasengan expanded, almost catching all of his paths in its range. His 3 remaining paths jumped back, a yellow flash filling his vision. Naruto appeared, holding both Kakashi and Jiraiya. The Sannin was panting heavily from having his soul almost removed. Kakashi was unharmed, besides a couple of scratches. "Look what we have here. The Akatsuki leader," Naruto observed, standing to his full height. "Took you long enough," Jiraiya chuckled through breaths. "I was just about to die." "Sorry about that. The others were adamant about joining me." As if on cue, 8 more figures appeared surrounding the Hokage Tower. Yahiko and the other Paths of Pain looked at the Jinchuriki, all of them right at their fingertips. Even the other Kage stood on the sidelines, interested to see how this battle would play out. "Damn it, Zetsu," the Paths thought. "You didn't sense them entering the village? That must mean our suspicion was correct. He knows the flying Raijin. You brought them all here, despite knowing the danger you're placing them in?" Yahiko asked. "You're a bigger fool than I thought. Don't worry about them. You'll just be fighting me, Rinnegan user," Naruto replied, his chakra oozing out of him. "Pervy Sage, I'm gonna need all the info you got on this guy." Jiraiya understood what he meant, and bumped fists with the blonde. Within a single second, Jiraiya told him everything he knew, via his mindscape. "So, you're Yahiko, but at the same time you're not. Interesting." "I don't know what you mean, Nine-Tails Jinchuriki," Yahiko answered blankly. "Yahiko isn't an Uzumaki. Nagato is. That means you must be Nagato, using your friend's corpse as your puppet. The only thing I don't know is how." "Those black piercings," Gaara shouted to Naruto. "Shukaku says they're chakra receiver rods. You can send chakra through them." "Kurama agrees," Naruto responded. "Now, my fellow Jinchuriki, as well as all of you tailed beasts, to prove myself to you, I shall defeat the Paths of Pain without Kurama's help. This is gonna be fun." If you like what you just heard, consider hitting the subscribe button and bell icon to get notified about new videos. If there's a part you've missed, then check out the entire playlist on screen. If you like this story, please share it with your fellow anime lovers. Any support helps a lot. That's all for now. This is Ninja Kai, disappearing in a golden flash.